So, are you ready? Go ahead and I want you to stand back because we're going to try to do some science. Are you ready? Okay. Now, like I said, I was a Native American anthropologist. I have spent time doing archaeology. I have spent time doing cultural research, and that's kind of where we're headed with Bigfoot here shortly. But one of the things that got me really into this was the actual science and the hard evidence. My next slide, please. For some reason, I couldn't find my clicker thing. I had it last night.
To have and to hold and to click the slides.
Yeah, to click the slides. Yeah, all right. So, there is actual hard evidence. Believe it or not, there is actual scientific evidence that Bigfoot exists. And I am not here to try to convince you. I'm just going to show you what this evidence is. Okay? Like I said, I have been an archaeologist for a very long time. This is Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. Anybody ever heard of that place? Amazing place. I spent 2 years there with Berkeley University doing an archaeological dig in there, and we found some amazing things. Like, did you know that there's Aztec ball courts in New Mexico? And we found jars with chocolate in them in New Mexico with that cacao from South America. We found bones of parrots. There are no parrots in New Mexico. We think that Chaco Canyon was a trading post, but it was an amazing trading post. There's 5 buildings. See this? To prove I'm there, that's me, right there, okay? There's my proof that I was there, okay? But if you see the size of that building, you could fit thousands of people in there. It was like a big, huge cultural exchange center. But the weird thing about Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, is they had 5 buildings like that. 4 of them? What?
Were there any artifacts that showed a Sasquatch found amongst the ruins of this?
Not in South America. Not there. Not there. I'm getting there. Okay, but what's amazing about this, these 5 buildings, there's one in the center, and there's one to the east, one to the west, one to the north, one to the south. They are 10 miles apart. You cannot see them from each other, but if you were to take a compass and walk directly north and east and south, the walls on this one line up with the walls on that one 10 miles away. How did they do that without compasses or GPSs 2,000 years ago?
Because aliens.
It's aliens. All right, so the next slide is I spent a lot of years in Central California. I'll never go back. But anyway, this is the Miwok Indian tribe. I was the Miwok Indian tribe's archaeologist for 4 years. What we were trying to do with the Miwok Indians was we were trying to verify their culture. Because when the United States wrote a treaty with all the Indians in that area, they said they are Paiutes and everybody in this area is Paiutes. You're a Paiute, here's your treaty. But the Miwok said, no, we're not Paiutes, we're Miwoks. They live in Yosemite Valley, California, one of the most beautiful places on earth, and the worst place you've ever been in your life. 4 million tourists every summer. It's horrible. But anyway, the Miwoks have a village in the side of the Yosemite Village in the park there, because this is their ancestral homeland. Really neat thing about the Miwok Indian tribe is the baskets. If you see the pictures of the baskets up there, they can weave baskets so tight they hold water. And it's amazing. I got to watch them do it, some of the elders, and it was just fantastic watching them do it. What we were doing is that whole time I was there in that area was to was to prove that they are a separate culture from the Paiutes. To do that, we had to do research and find out where's their history. We went looking for pictographs, petroglyphs, if I can speak English today. Okay, and anything that we could prove, you know, how long they've been there, how different their culture was from the Paiute culture, you know, all that stuff. Mainly so that they could get their own treaty with the United States, so they could open a casino. But that's another story. But anyway, so walking through the woods in Central California and the Sierra Nevadas, we found this, Hannah.
Yes. Sliger's fault.
I know. This right here is a petroglyph, and that's, I wish it got darker faster, but we'll get there. I don't know if you can see it, but this is a petroglyph in Central California in Yosemite Valley, near a place called Tioga Pass. You can look it up on the map. But if you see right above me right here, there's a Native American sitting on a horse with a bow. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, Native American sitting on a horse with a bow. That kind of dates it a little bit, so we know that's between 200 to 300 years ago. Okay? What is this standing next to it? They know what a Native American looks like because they just drew one. What is this gigantic creature with big feet and big hands and big body standing next to it? I asked the Miwok elder, you know, because I learned this stuff in college. I learned how to read this stuff and what all this stuff means, you know. That is a goat. Okay? Pretty easy. But what's this big thing? I'm like, what is that? And he goes, it's a Sasquatch. It's a Bigfoot. Yayali. And I go, Yayali. What does that mean in your language? And he goes, hairy man. And I go, could you run that by me again? Bigfoot? Hairy man? And he goes, yeah. Don't you know anything? And walked off. It's like, these things exist, like, duh, you know? And I'm like, really? The Patterson film was real, right? So I thought, that's interesting. So I started looking into other pictographs and petroglyphs in the Central California area. And I found that another anthropologist, Kathy Markowitz, or Moskowitz, I can't say her name. Anyway, she had found this. It's kind of hard to see here, but here's, well, the next slide has a really good depiction of it. This is a pictograph, which is painted. Petroglyphs are carved, pictographs are painted. This is a painted pictograph in Central California. This right here is just outside of Porterville, California. This, in real life, is 8 feet tall. So this was life-size painting of a Bigfoot, his wife, and his child. Okay?
What if he drew, it looks like he drew it, he's crying or something.
He's crying. Okay? That depicts sadness in their pictures. And what's really interesting is the rest of this stuff makes sense. This right here, hunting party. That up there is a water spring. Okay? These are locations. Those are footprints near the water next to where we found the deer. Okay? And these are the coolest things in the world. This dates that for us right here. Obviously there was a man down. And I think Bigfoot was saddened by what the natives were doing. Were hunting. But these right here is what really tells the story. Those are atlatls. Anybody know what an atlatl is? Yeah, it's a spear chucking device. It's what the natives used before bows and arrows were invented. It's just a stick with a hook on it, and you hook it to the end of a spear, which lengthens your arm length, so you got a lot more leverage. And humans have been using those since, well, Neanderthal. So that dates this to almost 2,000 years ago. So, the next thing I looked into was they've got to be more than just in Central California. So I contacted 175 Native American tribes. And I found 175 names for Bigfoot. I found 175 descriptions. And what's interesting is they are divided almost 50-50. Half of them call them hairy man, brother, benevolent creature of the woods, but the other half call them monster, cannibal, creature, the boogeyman basically. So the interesting thing with this is you got to take all this stuff with a grain of salt. A lot of the Native American culture is really, really different than ours when they come to metaphysical or, outside of the box thinking for the way the world works, So the ones that call them monster, do we really believe that they're a monster? Some of them, yes. Some of them, it's just like that story you tell your kids not to go in the woods at night. The boogeyman's going to get you. We have those stories. So I don't know if it's exactly 50-50 what's good and bad with these creatures, but there's 175 names for them, I know. Some tribes even have treaties with Bigfoot. Treaties, as if they were able to talk to them. The most interesting and my wife's favorite story is from the Ojibwa tribe. Northern Michigan, kind of in Canada. The Ojibwas. When the white man showed up, Bigfoot went to the Ojibwas and said, don't have anything to do with them. The Ojibwa said, we want to trade for the horses. Bigfoot said, I'm going to the mountains and never be seen again. Think about that. 8-foot tall primate going to the mountains and never be seen again, hiding from the white man. Sound familiar in the Bigfoot world? So here's another thing that I found. See these masks? Next slide. See these masks? If you can see them really well. This is in, this came out of just north of Vancouver, BC, British Columbia, Canada. This one here, Alaska. This one here is in eastern Washington, a tribe called the Umatilla tribe. Okay. This one here, we don't know where it came from, but it was found on the shore of the Columbia River in Oregon. Okay. What's interesting about these is the way they look. Looks kind of primate to me, doesn't it? You've got a wide jaw. You've got a prominent brow ridge. You've got deep set eyes that are set back. And you've got this little round bulbous nose. When I started looking at these and being able to put this morphology together, I saw something that was really interesting on the documentary. I think it was done, I think it was in Ireland. I don't know. It was a Bigfoot documentary. I don't tend to miss those. But what they did is they took a whole bunch of witnesses, had them set down and described what they saw of Bigfoot. Then they took this myriad of witnesses, took all those descriptions, put them together, and they did like a digital rendering of what Bigfoot would look like. Okay. All right.
You need a bell. Like on a
Yeah. So, this is that digital rendering, and when I saw that, I thought that's very interesting. Small bulbous nose, deep set eyes, big brow ridge, long, wide jaw. The mandible is wide. So I thought, where have I seen that before? Oh, it's too... I can't see it real well. This is Patty from the Patterson film. Okay? Do you see this? You probably
No,
can't
you
see
don't.
it. There's a face looking at you right here. Well, we'll get back to that when it gets darker anyway.
www.squatchoregon.com.
Yeah, if you go to www.squatchoregon.com, that photo is on the leaderboard. Squatchoregon.com. Okay? That photo right here, which you can't see really well, is a Bigfoot looking at you through the woods. And normally I would say photographs this day and age of Bigfoot is probably worthless, right? Because of all the digital technology we have, anybody can make anything they want. So if somebody shows me a picture of a Bigfoot, I'm like very skeptical all the time. You know, I have to be, because that's the scientist in it. But this one I'm not skeptical with at all, because I took that picture. You can be skeptical of me, that's fine. But I know I took that picture of this creature looking at me through the woods like this, after it growled at me. And I smelled it. So, but the interesting thing, next slide, honey, is, which you probably can't see these really well, but if you can see this, there's a brow ridge right there. Patty has a brow ridge, a small bulbous nose, and a really wide mandible.
Could you tell us what the scientific name is for the primate, quote unquote, stink gland when they're afraid of you?
I don't know. I can't.
There's got to be a name.
There's got to be a name for the stink gland.
Yeah, you know.
Do you know what? I have a theory, and this is just a theory. I'm throwing it at you. I don't think they all smell.
Yeah.
I think it's teenage boys.
Yeah.
I'm kind of serious. Okay.
I was going to say, being in a school, I go with that.
Yeah. All right. But I started noticing the morphology of this face with the morphology of those masks, and they match. So we have 600-year-old photographs of Bigfoot up here, if you think about it. 600-year-old photographs of Bigfoot we're looking at. The next thing I want to talk about is the morphology of a foot. Okay? For the past 5 years, I've been traveling around doing these Bigfoot festivals. I have sat down for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours with Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and he is boring as hell in real life.
Great guy.
Great guy. He talks like a doctorate professor, okay? So everything sounds like, stereo instructions when he's talking, but he's brilliant. He is brilliant because a lot of people don't know this. His expertise in anthropology is the evolution of bipedal locomotion. In other words, how we developed upright walking. And he knows more about the hips and legs and feet of any humanoid on the planet. And one of the things I got to talk with him about was the morphology of the foot. Now what I have here is a copy of a cast taken in Bluff Creek, California in 1967. Anybody know whose footprint this is?
Patty.
It's Patty's, right? This is the footprint that Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin took. I know Bob. We've spent a few days together talking, and I totally believe that old man. I mean, he's awesome. Okay, and he still today, believe it or not, when he talks about his experience, you can watch his arms and you'll see the hair on his arms and the little goose pimples stick up. That's how I know he's not lying to me, right? Yeah.
Is that creature in the film clip, which only lasted for seconds, were they able to see it longer than just what was on the
Oh yeah, they saw it. No, yeah, he ran out of film, but they watched it walking across the stream, up a hill. Then they were trying to get the camera reloaded, and they were going to go up the hill after it, and they found the footprints, and the whole thing. Anyway, but they didn't go after it.
How big is the footprint?
14 inches. Okay, so this is Patty from the Patterson film. Okay? It doesn't look like much, does it? It looks like you could probably carve this out of a piece of wood and make a footprint in the sand with it, right? Or can you? There's morphology to this foot. Next slide, I'll show you something. Looking at it this way, Look at it this way, though, and it opens your world up. If you look very carefully, and even if you take a micrometer and put on this, you'll find that the heel is slightly deeper than the center of the foot. The forefoot right here is slightly deeper than the rear of the foot. The toes are slightly deeper than the forefront. So when this foot hit the ground, it hit the ground flat. Secondly, it bent in the middle, and then the toes came up last. When the knee raised, when it lifted its foot off there. Jeff Meldrum showed me how to draw out the bone structure in this foot just from what I see in the pad. One, the heel's a lot wider. This is us, this is them. Okay? It doesn't look a whole lot different, does it? But there are slight differences, and anthropologists see this kind of stuff because we're trained to do so in bone structures and things like that. One, look where the ankle, this is where the ankle attaches right here and here. This is called the calcaneus. If you look how wide that is and how wide this is compared to where the ankle attaches, the heel is a lot deeper, or the calcaneus is a lot longer than what humans have. Why do you need a longer calcaneus? Because you weigh 800 pounds. You need a big, wide, flat foot to support that weight. Secondly, these bones are slightly longer in the center here. That's because this foot bends in the middle when it steps up. Did you know that our human bones, our human foot would bend in the middle if we did not have an arch in our foot? These creatures do not have an arch. There's not one in any of the footprints we ever find. And that's because their foot bends in the middle. Okay? So when they step flat on the ground, because I've heard a lot of stories of people in their tent in the middle of the night, and in the woods they hear the ground vibrating from bipedal steps going boom, boom. That's because these animals, when they step, their foot hits the ground flat. It bends in the middle like this, just slightly. See, it's not like big old bend, but it's a bend in the middle, pushing this part down, and then when they lift the toes off, the toes go deeper. Our foot, we hit, we rock, we've got this big arch in the center here in the footprint, and the balls of our feet are about the same depth because we lift our foot up at that point. Because when we walk, we hit our heel on the ground, we vault over our hip, and we take our next step. If you watch the Patterson film, there's some things that are very, very, very interesting. That big foot does not bounce when it walks. It's like gliding on the plane, and I've heard 100 stories from 100 different people telling me this thing looked like it was floating across the ground. Because they're used to watching things that walk upright do this when they walk. And if you're in the hood, they do it more. Okay? All right? But Bigfoot, if they walk with their knees bent all the time, they never, if you watch Patty, she never straightened her knees out. Her knees are constantly bent. Step. Rock off your foot. Step. Boom. No bouncing. And another thing, if you watch the Patterson film, as soon as the foot comes up, you'll see the whole bottom of her foot straight in the air, just as the toes leave, just like that. If you watch closely, you notice little things. Humans don't walk like that.
They're clearly not apes because they use their hands.
Right. This is an upright walking creature, so it's totally different. We're gonna get to that later too. Okay, so the next thing I want to show you is one of my favorite footprints ever. It's this one right here. Okay, this one here was taken like in my hometown. This is like where I grew up. All right. You notice our truck says Blue Mountain Bigfoot Research. This was taken out of the Blue Mountains. All right, less than 15 miles from my house, back in 1994. And this is a footprint found from this creature.
Oh.
Next. You're going to not be able to sit down. Anybody remember this film? Is it plain?
Is it supposed to
It's
play?
not plain. I don't know how to make it play.
I don't know how to
Try the
make
next
it.
one. There we go.
Oh, there you go.
He's a big one.
Okay, that guy's name's Paul Freeman. Okay, he took this footprint after he took that film. Okay, the coolest thing about this footprint is it's 15 inches long. But if you look very closely in the little toes, and right here, you can see dermal ridges, fingerprints in the toes. Now, these were taken to actually Dr. Jeff Meldrum took this print, showed it to a police fingerprint expert. His name was Jimmy Chilcutt, okay, from Texas. They actually fingerprinted this, put it in the AV system, funny enough. It came back non-human pattern. It doesn't match any human, so that did two things. It proved that this wasn't a human sticking his thumb in a fingerprint, to try to make fingerprints. It doesn't match any human patterns. And secondly, if Bigfoot ever gets arrested, his fingerprints are in the AV system. Okay? So if you look really closely in the toes, I'm going to pass this around if you want to take a look at it. And please don't drop it. It's the only one I got. All right.
Is it an actual casting or?
That is a copy of the original cast. And I got lucky getting that one. When he first cast it, what's his name? Washington State University, Grover Krantz. Grover Krantz, he took it to Grover Krantz, anthropologist in Washington State University in Washington. Grover Krantz made 3 copies of it. That's one of those 3 copies. Yeah, I do. Yeah, he was the character.
He was one of my favorites.
Yeah. So, next photo. I hope this is light. I hope it's dark enough and you can see this.
It's
Bigger.
probably not. Oh, better. Little.
Better, we're getting there. Okay. So this is the photo I took. And I want to be happy to say that photo of the Bigfoot that I saw, that I took, was as the crow flies 20 miles directly south of where Paul Freeman took the Freeman book. I thought that was kind of cool. I'm like, I took a picture of an ancestor of the picture that Paul Freeman took. All right, so that's the Freeman footprint. The next footprint was taken in a place. Oh my gosh, the name just went out of my head. Central Washington, towards the north. I forgot the name of it. I'll think of it in a second. What?
Scamania? No.
No, up north. And that's this footprint right here. This footprint was taken in 1996. It was taken in snow. but it has a normal foot. I actually have the normal foot here. I didn't pick it out, but there's one normal foot, one crippled foot. This is famously known as crippled foot. Okay? The thing about crippled foot here is, one, it has 16-inch footprints, okay? And this here is very, very interesting. No, next slide, by the way. Okay, I'm sorry. And next slide.
And
Okay.
next slide.
Those are the original casts. These are the copies. Okay, so if you were to take and draw the bone structure out in this foot, that's what it would look like. Grover Krantz from Washington State University drew that out based on this print. You got the normal foot and the abnormal foot. He took the drawing of the bone structure to a podiatrist. And he asked the podiatrist, what's wrong with this guy's foot? He didn't say it was a Bigfoot's foot. He just said, what's wrong with, if this guy's bone structure looks like that, what's wrong with this? The podiatrist said, and I quote, that's clubfoot, spinal cord cyst at birth, common ailment. If you want to diagnose it without an x-ray, you'll have 2 nodules on the outside of the foot.
Right there.
2 nodules on the outside of the foot. So if this one's faked, it's faked by a podiatrist. 1,089 times, because we found 1,089 of these footprints. And it was flexible. As they stepped in different substrates, the foot would flex and it would move. And
Only on the one foot. It's not the other.
it's only on one foot. Yeah. So we found 1,089. This Bigfoot was actually tracked for 5 years. We'd find every once in a while they would find a cripple foot track.
Where's this other toe?
What's that?
You're asking questions.
What? Yes.
I think he answered his.
Okay.
So, next slide, hon. So, I want to get a little bit about faking footprints. Due to the morphology of the foot on this, and a super secret technique known only by Jeff Meldrum, myself, and about 15,000 other people. But anyway, that Jeff, no, probably about 30 other guys that Jeff confided with. Especially people like myself that's in the anthropology world. He showed us a quick way to spot fakes and spot real Bigfoot tracks just by the morphology of the foot. Some of that stuff is what I showed you, and some of the stuff that he wants us not to tell you about because it's easy for us to find fakes that way. But anybody ever heard of Ray Wallace? Famous Bigfoot track faker, okay? He was, amazingly enough, accredited for every Bigfoot track in the Northwest for over 30 years.
Busy guy.
Busy guy. Yeah, yeah. So when he passed away, they found these wooden, what they called stompers, that had leather straps on them that he used to go out and walk through the woods with. Okay? But there was a guy by the name of Bill Miller. He lives in British Columbia,
Canada.
Canada. Yes. Okay. Anyway, what he did is he took this guy's footprint and he matched it up to all the known footprints that we've found over the years. He made them all the same length, same size. Next slide. So there was no discrimination, just to see if those stompers matched any of them. They did not match any of them.
Hannah, they didn't get to see that.
And you can tell by, this is the stomper,
Right behind you.
and this is the one I just showed you, you know, from Roger Patterson. You know, they are no bueno, okay? They don't match. All right, the next thing I want to get into is this thing called Gigantopithecus. Anybody ever heard of that one?
Yes.
Yes, Gigantopithecus is an 8-foot tall, upright, walking, ape-like creature from China. We literally have fossils of these. So there's no doubt that these things exist. In fact, this is one of the only known jawbone specimens left in the world today. And Jeff Meldrum has it. I got to touch it. I got to hold that. It was kind of fun. But the neat thing about Gigantopithecus, and there's Gigantopithecus blackie, there's a few versions of these creatures we've found, is a couple really neat things. One, they walk upright. Two, they're 8 foot tall. Three, they have very small canine teeth, much like we do. Okay? And 3, where the fossils are found. Or 4, where the fossils are found. My wife's keeping track of numbers for me now. Okay. This is Asia. This is where they're found. This is a place called Beringia. During the Ice Age, that was open land. And a lot of people think this froze over, and that's how they got across. It's not. It actually, the Ice Age happened, the water level lowered, and this was actually almost like, you know, very, very warm grasslands during that time. Okay? Between Russia and Alaska. So, next slide. Guess where we were 10,000 years ago, where we found these guys 10,000 years ago. We were on the edge of Beringia, coming across and becoming what is now known as the Native Americans of America. Native Americans are primarily of Chinese descent, in case you didn't know. And DNA has proved it. Okay? So, same place, same time. Why didn't they follow us, or did they follow us? We don't know.
Have you met us?
Next thing I want to show you is this beautiful little piece of film. This is the Patterson film. Am I out of the way? Can everybody see? Okay. So, this is this film was you know, took all the shakeout, and, you know, this is done by a guy by the name of N.K. Davis. Did this rendition of this so you could see it. But remember when I talked about Bigfoot walking? Watch when it starts over here. Do you see little flashes of white when you're seeing the bottom of its feet? These are film frames from that film. See the bottom of the foot? Kind of matches this one, because it's the same foot. And if you notice, the foot is straight in the air every time it took a step, left and right. In fact, I've got both of those here. I'll let you see them later. Okay. I got both the left and right of that film. So they walk different. In the film, this is not a guy in a suit. This has been analyzed more than any other film on the planet, I can guarantee you that. Probably the best book you've ever get in the world is called When Roger Met Patty. It was written by, names are going away from me today. Anyway, he was a Hollywood special effects guy, tried to break this down and design a suit that would look like this. He could not do it. But you can actually see muscle movement under the skin. When the creature's moving, you can see that it has the thigh muscle. There was damage to it. You can see there's a little nodule that pops up when it walks. It doesn't walk like a human, of course. It's got that compliant gait, as it's called, by the way. I think Jeff Meldrum invented that one, but it's called the Bigfoot compliant gait. Okay.
And her chest moves like a female.
And the chest moves like a female. If you look, it is a girl.
Patty.
Hence Patty. Okay. Yeah.
That white band across the head, is it a hairless portion like that?
That's the eyes. Yeah, that's the deep set eyes with light on it. Okay, from the sun. It happened to be the angle of the sun, and you can see into the deep wells of its eyes. What?
15 minutes till intermission.
Okay. All right. So if there was a guy that claimed to be the guy in the suit, okay? If you were to take this, and now National Geographic did this, they did what's called photogrammetry. They took the lens from the camera, the original camera. They took, well, not the original one, but the same camera he had. Figured out the focal length, the distance of everything in there. They did a laser scan of the entire area, found every tree and rock that was filmed in this film, and they measured everything using immense amount of math that I can't do. But they figured out that this creature, this is exactly the length of the footprint he cast. The creature's height in its bent over posture was 7 feet 6 inches tall. If it stood up, it'd probably be over 8 feet tall. Okay? By taking those numbers, we're able to figure out the height and weight of Bigfoot from the length of its foot. We made a little chart. It was kind of fun. Okay? But secondly, the guy who claimed to be in the suit doesn't fit the suit. One, he's not 7 foot 6 inches tall. The length from here to here is actually, his legs are longer than Patty's. You know why? Because that's a Bigfoot and that's a human, who are made different. Okay? The width of the shoulders, that's another thing. He would have had to have his elbows as the shoulders in order for that to fit.
Do you know approximately how tall he was?
Yes, he was 6'2". He's an inch shorter than me. Okay, and then of course the distance from the eyes and to the elbow was another very drastic difference, almost 20 centimeters. Okay, so there we go. First Bigfoot ever filmed. In 1967, before digital anything. It's what got me into this. So, I'm going to rifle through the next step here. Are there new things found every day? Absolutely. I want to go through a couple for you. The giant squid, Architeuthis, right? The Kraken, right? It was talked about in 1550 in journals that sailors had, pirates and whatnot. It was discovered in 1880. Somebody found parts of one. The first photo of one live was not taken until 2002. The next thing is, this is my favorite. This is the Billy Ape.
So cute.
It was discovered in 1996 in the Congo. Wasn't classified by professional zoologists until they got a camera trap photo of one in 2003.
How long had the natives been talking about
The
it?
natives have been talking about it forever. They got pictures that are 2,000 years carved in rocks. Okay? You know what's the neat thing about that? That Billy Ape? It's a chimpanzee. It is 5 foot tall. Okay? Dogfish shark. This is one of my favorites too. Wasn't discovered until 2018. This thing swims within the first 100 yards of the shore of the Gulf of Mexico and has done it for thousands of years, and no one ever saw it. Or people saw it and said, that's a shark. They didn't know it was a different shark. Okay? And this photo, taken in 2012. That's the back of a Bigfoot. That's been poo-pooed since 2012. But it's a camera trap photo. Okay?
Okay.
So, I'm going to go through real quick. If you want to see
You have 8
some
minutes.
Of the, okay, if you want to see some of the stuff that we've found, it's on SquatchOregon.com. If you don't know where the Blue Mountains of Oregon is, the blue part's the Blue Mountains of Oregon. Okay, there's 23,000 square miles of uninhabited forest in that part of Oregon. There's only like 4 towns there, and the biggest one's got 10,000 people in it. Okay? It stretches up here through the panhandle of Idaho into the Rockies. And then it comes over here and hits the Cascade Mountains and goes south into some place down here in California called Bluff Creek. I'm sorry. What? Expedition Bigfoot. Where was that? Okay, Expedition Bigfoot. Okay, I can't point that far up. Okay, I'm from like the end of the S over a little bit. Expedition Bigfoot was filmed right there at the bottom of the... Because
They're barely in the Blue Mountains.
They were barely in the Blue Mountains, and it was filmed at a bed and breakfast. You think those people stayed in the woods? No. Okay, but so the Blue Mountains is a natural corridor that links, the only natural corridor that links the Rocky Mountains to the Sierra Nevadas in California. It is a corridor. So I'll tell you why I enjoy people telling me Bigfoot stories. Normally in the Blue Mountains, I get, for the last 5 years, normally on average about 120 reports a year. People see these things all the time. It's just nobody believes them. I believe them. Okay? I'm able to take those reports, put time and date and location on them, and put pins in maps. That's how I find Bigfoot. I've worked out, if you want to call it a migration pattern, I don't know if they migrate for sure. I've got a suspicion they do. But I've been able to find out where they're going to be, when they're going to be there, just by reports from people for the last 5 years. 4 years ago we found, boy, it's still not dark enough, but we found a 14-inch footprint. This one here, less than 2 miles away from where the Freeman film was taken. Next one, where I got the photo of the Bigfoot, I'll tell you that story real quick. Hiking along a trail with a guy who his daughter, he was really into Bigfoot. It was Father's Day. She wanted her dad to go Bigfooting because he just wanted to do that. She found me on Facebook. She said, "Can you take my dad Bigfooting and show him a Bigfoot?" I'm like, "Well, no. I've been doing this for 25 years and I've never seen one," right? I've had rocks thrown at me, I've heard whoops, I've found footprints, but I had never saw one, right, for 25 years. So I said, okay, I've got a bunch of reports. I got 5 reports in the same week in the same area. So I said, yeah, I'll take him out for an evening. Let's go. Nicest guy in the world. Put him on my truck. We're walking down this trail up in the woods. It was raining a little bit. Muddy trail. Hiking along, I smelled the worst smell I had ever smelled in my life. It was horrendous. I had heard these stories. I had never smelled that before. Okay? Kind of wet dog, skunk, garbage, and onions all together. Okay? That's the only way I can describe it. Okay. It was horrible. So we're hiking this trail, and we're in forest, so you can't really see, too far into the forest. So I go, dude, that's probably a Bigfoot. And he's thinking, oh yeah, the guy took me out to find Bigfoot, right? So he's like, yeah, that's a Bigfoot. I'm like, no, really. And my heart was pounding. I'm like, that's probably a Bigfoot. And I said, let's keep walking and see if it follows us, see if the smell follows us. So we kept walking. And I was hoping it would follow us because we're on a muddy trail. I'm like, I got footprints now, buddy. Right behind us, they're following us. And the smell went away. And I'm like, dang it. So we turn around. I said, let's go back. And we walked back down the trail. The smell came back. And then off to my left, down an embankment, About 200 feet away, I heard a We stopped. I'm scanning down there. I don't see anything. So what do? I'm the guy that chases the 8-foot gorilla, right? I looked down where I heard that sound and I went, and know what it did? Back at me. And then I saw it. In this little opening, I saw this head doing this. Looking at me. I started snapping pictures like crazy. And then off to the left, out in the woods, we hear this highest pitch whistle I have ever heard in my life. Okay? And I had discussed this with, what's his name?
Ron Moorhead.
Ron Moorhead. Just 2 weeks ago, I was on a Zoom meeting with Ron Moorhead, and we discussed this sound, right? And he played it, one that he had recorded, and I'm like, yep, that was it. So it's a highest pitch whistle, but it's not done with the lips, it's done with the vocal cords. It's a high pitch whistle, okay? And the creature I was looking at went and walked towards that whistle. Yeah, what?
I know this is going to be presumptive. Do you carry handguns or weapons with you to defend yourself? Okay, something like just decide to take you out. Do you have some way to defend yourself?
Yes, because I've read missing 411 books. If you're familiar with those, there's a guy who tracks Bigfoot by who goes missing in the woods. Okay, yes, I do carry firearms in the woods. I have no intention to ever killing one of these creatures unless it's like him or me.
It's him or you.
Yeah, right. And we do have, and in where I'm at in Oregon, we have a lot of timber wolves. They were reintroduced, 20 years ago, and they breed like crazy. And we don't have a hunting season for them, and there's just thousands of them up there now. All the deer live in town now because they can't live in the woods.
Do you recommend carrying a personal locator?
Yes, I do.
They really come down in price.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, I like one of those. So anyway, this thing turns and walks away. So I'm standing there, my heart's pounding like crazy. I probably don't move for about 20 minutes. Okay?
How's your guest?
Yeah.
How's he?
No, he's the same way. Okay. He's like, oh my gosh, you took me in the woods and showed me a Bigfoot. I'm like, yeah, I told you I would. But anyway, so I dove down over the hill. It started to get dark at that point, and I didn't want to mess up any footprints, so I turned around and came back up. The next morning, my wife and I, we actually stayed later that night. We did the knocking on the trees and the whooping, which is worth it, by the way.
He woke me up at 12:30 in the morning, all excited like a 6-year-old on
Yes! I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, we go down there. I dive off the hill, and I'm ready for my archaeology tour because I brought everything I needed. I even calculated the angle of the hillside, the degrees of pitch and the distance, and I shot lasers through trees, and I figured out that this thing that was looking at me was exactly 6 foot tall. But the great thing where it was standing was right here. There's a 9-inch footprint right here, and I don't know if you can see it in this photo, but there's a 15-inch footprint right there. There's another 15-inch footprint up there. You can see where they kind of marked the red up here. And that's 12 feet. 3 steps. 15-inch footprints took 3 steps to go up this hill, this steep, in 3 steps. 12 feet in 3 steps. The 9-inch footprint here, and I have the cast right there, took 1 footprint on that. We found a scuff mark halfway up the hill where something had drug a toe. Mom or dad, I don't know which, step, baby took a step, grabbed it, threw it up the hill.
Just like
Did the smell go away?
The smell went away. Yeah, as soon as I heard that whistle and it turned and walked away, the smell went away. Yep.
Is there any theory as to how many it would take to sustain a population?
Yeah.
Like How big of a group would
Okay.
that be in order to...
Yeah, we've discussed that a lot with a lot of the guys who do this, and we're estimating in the Pacific Northwest, that's Oregon, Washington, and Idaho, we're guessing there's probably about 4,000 of them. All right, we're gonna go fast. So we were just wrapping up some of the stuff we found. I don't know if you can see this yet. It's still kind of light outside, but these are the 3 15-inch footprints we found. Then we found further on, next, you want to go snappy.
Only 20 more. Oh.
Okay.
Wow.
We found a footprint inside this, which I'm not a big advocate of tree structures because, you know, snow loads. And I can't really prove that a Bigfoot snapped this tree or whatever, but that one was really interesting. It was broken in apart, the thickest part of the tree, you know, and it was folded over and made kind of a little nest looking thing. We thought it was cool. All right? I'm not saying it's a Bigfoot, but it's a Bigfoot. Okay, no. Okay, next slide is listen, 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 listen. You got to listen to this one. Did you hear that? I recorded that. Yes. Okay. All right. That was in the Blue Mountains in the middle of the night. That was a lot of fun. That recording we got was just after we were following up on a report where a family was in the woods picking huckleberries, and out of the tree line, they were out in an open area picking huckleberries, and out of the tree line, a stump this big around come flying out of the woods, went of almost 50 yards over their head and landed out there. Needless to say, they quit picking huckleberries and left, right? We were there the same day. We got into that area the same day. We went to that spot. We pretended to pick huckleberries, and nothing threw anything at us. But we stayed there and into the night. We recorded that about 1 o'clock in the morning. And what was really interesting is right before we recorded this, I was looking at an elk that was looking at me through my night vision binoculars I have. And we did not have an audio thing running at that time recording, which I kicked myself for. Is we heard what was like a drum roll in the middle of the woods at 1 o'clock in the morning, and then just about 10 minutes later we recorded that whoop, because I cut the recorder on after I heard the drum roll. And I was talking to Ron Moorhead about the drum roll thing. I said, you ever heard anything like a drum roll? You know, I don't know if anybody knows who Ron Moorhead is. He recorded the Sierra Sounds, okay? And he said, yeah, I know exactly what that was. You know, he said it was this. And that's almost what I heard. Like a gorilla. Okay? And by the way, when we heard that sound, the elk stopped looking at me, looked at the direction where that came from, and turned around and went the opposite direction. So it knew. This here we found just in January of this year. This is a 15-inch footprint in the snow.
Next one?
Next one, yeah. It's the up arrow, or this side arrow. Is that it?
That's what she
That's
told me to
it.
hit.
Perfect. All right.
Fired.
So it's 6 inches long, 18 inches long. I'm sorry, I got the length wrong. But we found that actually in a parking lot. Yes, in a parking lot at a snow park where people park their cars and go snowshoeing. It is not a snowshoe. It matches all the morphology that I needed to match to fit there, and we found about a mile of those in the snow. They came down off the hill, through the parking lot, down off another hill, and down into a valley. I followed it for about a mile in snow this deep, and then we decided I'm not going any further because I can't. Okay. So, and let's see, the next one is, let's see if it's dark enough you can see this face yet. Almost! Can you see that?
Yep.
Face
Oh, yeah.
looking at you right there? That's the face in the woods. Going to the next slide, we got a blowed up version of it. I don't know if you see it. So the bright part is the top of the brow ridge, and this little bright part in the middle, here's the nose. Like I said, this is 200 feet away from me. My camera kept trying to focus on the foliage in front of it, not through on the other side of the foliage. I had a really nice camera. I had a nice Canon T6, and it kept focusing wrong. I grabbed the lens and was snapping pictures, and I heard the gears cracking because I was trying to focus it. I didn't take it out of autofocus, but I was trying to get the best photo I could. That's the one that growled at me. Okay, so we're going to skip. If you want to go see any of the analysis on anything we found, we have a YouTube channel. Go look up Blue Mountain Bigfoot Research on YouTube. I've got everything we've ever found broken down with photos and the explanations and the science behind everything we've done. And then also, if you want, if you're boredom, every Sunday night at 8 o'clock, my wife and I, we do a live stream on YouTube because there's no government funding for searching for Bigfoot, surprisingly. So if you want to come watch us, it costs you nothing. We get a little ad revenue. And then you can ask us questions or whatever we're talking about. Okay? Next slide. I'm gonna answer the biggest question of them all. You ready? What is Bigfoot? Is it some kind of North American great ape? Is it a species of primitive human? Is it a forest spirit, like the Native Americans say? Is it an alien? I've heard that one a lot. Is it an interdimensional being? Or is it just a myth? There's a lot of questions out here. Excellent. And I want to explain what...
Is the Yeti in Himalaya abominable snowman legends, are they along the same lines?
Exactly, yeah. What he asked was, is the Yeti and the Himalayan creatures that are the abominable snowman, are they in the same lines as these? Yes, they absolutely are. We guess that there's probably 3 different types of these creatures just here in the United States, depending on where they're at. And actually, in case you didn't know, they have them in Australia too. Yowie. Yep. Okay, so do you see this here? Anybody ever see this in grade school or whatever?
Yep.
This photo? Okay, next slide. You know what this photo is?
The evolution.
It's
primates.
right, next slide. This photo is BS. That's not how it works. Okay? So strike that from your mind for a second. There is no missing link. There is no evolution between a primate ape and us. That's not how it worked. I'm about to explain how this works. Okay? This is our family tree. Ardipithecus, this guy here, oldest known specimen we found. Lucy used to be, but she's not anymore. Okay? All right. So if you look at millions of years, millions with an M, okay? Each of these groups are about 1 million years apart. That's our family tree. You are up there at the top. But the way I want you to look at this is totally revolutionary. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the family tree and turn it upside down. So I want you to think of the family tree more as a waterfall. Up here at the top, we've got the beginning of the waters, the headwaters. That's where it is. That's where it started. As it goes over the waterfall, the water breaks up and goes to different places as it hits different rocks and goes different directions. And then, eventually, it comes back together. Okay, so if we take the family tree and we turn it upside down, just think, we have a common ancestor way up there somewhere. And as our species spread out across the planet, we went to different areas, different regions, different forests, different grasslands, and we had to adapt to live in those different areas. Different hunting techniques, you know, different climate. We had to adapt. So up here, we were in one place, and then as we spread out like the waterfall, we're in a different place here. So these guys had to develop differently from these guys because they're in a completely different area, a completely different region of the planet. What if those guys don't have snow, these guys do have snow, these guys have to grow hair, these guys don't. So this group is completely different from this group, and our group's in the middle here because we spread out the farthest. So if you look at our species, next slide, our group, the Homo group, okay, this is our family part of the waterfall that developed in Europe. Okay? So I want to show you this. This is kind of interesting. A lot of people don't know this. This is the tree mapped out in millions of years. But I want you to see Homo sapiens, Homo neanderthal, Homo heidelbergensis, Homo erectus, Homo nadali, Homo floresiensis. All those species existed on this planet at the same time, together. Okay? Homo floresiensis is now, it's different from when this, don't look at that. Okay, that's changed. And this stuff changes all the time as we find out new information. You plug it into the equation. But Homo floresiensis developed after we did. They're a younger species in human than we are. They just went extinct before we did. We outlasted them. Right? Homo nadali's been around forever. And by the way, Homo nadali is one of the newest specimens ever found. They found a cave in Africa with over 7,000 specimens of these things together. It was like a place they went to die. Okay. Homo erectus has been around for a long time too. Okay. Not our predecessor, another family member that grew up, a cousin. Okay. Look at it that way. Homo heidelbergensis about died out just as we were starting. Okay. Homo neanderthal. Anybody know what happened to Homo neanderthal?
Right out of existence, like 3 million years.
Homo neanderthal is still alive. How many are here, and I am guilty, are Acadian or French descent? Here in Maine, there's probably quite a few. It's my dad's from Van Buren, by the way. Okay? If you're Acadian or French descent, you have 4% Neanderthal in you. DNA has proved it. You know that guy that looks like a caveman? He is. Okay? All right? We bred them out. They were close enough to us that we could interbreed with them. And right now, if you go to like Ancestry.com and get your DNA done, they can tell you how much Neanderthal you are. Those guys are still alive. Okay? And that leaves us, Homo sapien. So at any given time on this planet, there's been 3 to 5 species of humans living together at the same time. Why is today any different? Think about that. What if we had the genus Homo GIGANTOPITHECUS? Think about that. What makes a Homo species from an ape species? What is the differences that we look at and say, we're going to classify this as a human and this as a primate? What do we look at? 1, you walk upright on bipedalism, right? 2, you have small canine teeth and a very wide mandible. Small canine teeth. You ever seen the teeth on a gorilla? They're huge and scary, okay? All right? So you have small canine teeth, you walk upright. What does Bigfoot do? He has a wide, remember I kept saying over and over how wide the jawbone was? That's an animal that has small canine teeth. And he walks upright. So let's add Homo gigantopithecus to the story. And what do we got? We got another species of humans living in the woods right here with us. Can I prove it? As soon as I put one on a table, I will. And I'm not planning on doing it. But as soon as we find one that we can put on a table, we'll be able to prove that. And let me tell you something, DNA is coming along greatly. What's the name of the book? Scott Carpenter, anybody know who Scott Carpenter is?
Truth Denied.
He has a book that he just published called Truth Denied. Okay? There is 135, did you hear what I just said? 135 specimens of DNA that are an unknown primate that match each other but nothing else on this planet that we have collected already. 135. And in that book he talks about the truth denied. And the great thing about the DNA that is found, it is not us, but it is darn close. It is within that chimpanzee to us ratio, 99%. Okay? So, what is Bigfoot? Some kind of North American great ape? He's not an ape. He walks upright and he has small canine teeth. Okay? Is he a species of primitive human? That's where I'm leaning. I can't prove it, but that's where I'm leaning. Okay? Alright. Is he a forest spirit? Probably no more than we are. I have a lot of people tell me they have all these stories about, I saw Bigfoot teleport through a tree. I saw, Bigfoot. In fact, even the Miwok Indian tribe of California I spoke about, they say everywhere Bigfoot goes, a light follows. There's a glowy light that follows Bigfoot around in the woods. I haven't experienced that, but they have. So, I'm pretty sure it's not a myth myself. So, what I want to say today, when I get to the end of this, is before we cannot put any of this stuff, any of these theories into a box and say, that's it, until we have undeniable truth. And DNA's kind of the way I want to go.
But
hold on. DNA is the kind of the way that I go, and Dr. Jeff Melder and I were talking about this, and there's something very exciting on the horizon for us as Bigfooters in this world. Yes.
If these creatures, let's say a population of them is discovered, would civilization treat them like a lost Amazon tribe where they try to protect them, or would they just exploit the hell out of them?
Both. He asked if we do discover these and they are human, what do we do? Basically. That's a good question, and I try not to go too much into the conspiracy theory, but I think the government already knows they exist. And secondly, I think that if we were to discover that these are human species, do they have to pay taxes?
Do they have rights?
Do they have civil rights? Do we have to deed them every national forest in the United States? Did I just prove evolution was real? What's that do for churches? There's a whole myriad of things that could happen, with these. But until we got one or got proof DNA, which is very exciting, by the way, what I was about to say, is there's a new thing that just was invented. And it was not invented by human doctors, but animal doctors, zoologists. They came up with this great idea. Why don't we figure out a way to take super minute pieces of DNA and multiply it? So let's take a cup of water out of a pond and tell you whatever drank out of that in the last 5 years. That's where we're headed next. We're going to start doing, it's called environmental DNA, and we're going to start collecting cups of water out of every pond on the planet and see what drank out of it in the last 5 years.
They
But-
do that now, to
Yeah.
some extent, in the Great Lakes. I know they've done DNA analysis to tell the fish species that are in the lakes.
Right.
They can use DNA for that.
Yep. So, I heard this the other day and it was really great. Our job is not to investigate the unexplained, or is to investigate the unexplained, not to explain the uninvestigated. So like I said, is